Hi, welcome to my video on the sum and product root method of finding an equation of a quadratic. And this is part 1. The roots of a quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not 0, are x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's the plus or minus the two roots. One root is x equals negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And the other root is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. I have a plus here, so I have to put a minus here. Negative b minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is negative b plus the root over 2a. This is negative b minus the root. One is a plus and one is a minus. And as a result, if you were to add these two roots together, then the sum would be negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Add on negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And the unit on rational expressions, hopefully you have that done, this would help you to add these expressions, because when you add fractions, as I have here, you need a common denominator, and the common denominator is the same, which is the 2a. You keep your denominator and you add your numerators. So negative b, add on square root of b squared minus 4ac, and you're going to add these together, which would be negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over. So same denominator, so you keep denominator, which is 2a, and you add these together. And as a result of adding these together, you can only add like terms. So notice this is a positive square root. This is a negative square root of the same terms, so they cancel out. So we get negative b, add on a negative b, so that's a negative 2b all over 2a. And the 2's cancel out, so the 2's cancel out, so I get a negative b over a. So the sum of the square roots of any quadratic in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, is a negative b over a. Okay, if that be the case, let's review. The sum of the roots of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, the sum of the roots is a negative b over a. So find the sum of the roots of each of these quadratics. So a is 1, b is 3, c is 2. So the sum of the roots is negative b over a. So b is 3, so that's the negative of 3 over a, which is 1. So the sum of the roots is negative 3 over 1, or negative 3. Let's continue. So notice I'm using negative b over 2a, so the sum, I'm going to call it SUM, the sum of the roots can be found very quickly by doing the negative b over a. That means I do not have to find the roots. I just use the negative b over a. And again, a is 2, b is negative 9, c is negative 5. So the sum that I'm going to call S, the sum of the roots, is negative b over a, and that's the negative of a negative 9 over 2. So that's 9 over 2. So that's the fast way to find the sum of the roots. And again, if you wanted to, you could solve this out and get the roots and then add them together. But that would take you way longer. So if you wanted to, again, solve this out by quadratic formula or factor, whatever you want. I'm just going to do that right now. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So what I'm going to do now, this is the short way. The sum of the roots is negative b over a, and worked out to be 9 over 2. So what I'm going to do now is derive the roots, and then I'm going to add them together to show you that I will get 9 over 2. So it's again, in this property, in this equation, b is negative 9, so the negative of a negative 9, add or subtract negative 9 squared minus 4. A is 2, and c is negative 5 all over 2 times 2. And that gives me 9. That's a plus. A negative of a negative is positive. And I have negative 9 squared is, okay, let's work that out up here better. 81 plus 20 plus 40 is 8 times 5 is 40 and is positive, and that gives me a 121. So that's a 121 all over 4. So that's 9 plus or minus square root of 121 is 11. And so what I have is 9 plus 11 over 4, or 9 minus 11 over 4. And that gives me 20 over 4, or negative 2 over 4. So that gives me a 5 or a negative a half. So if that's my two roots, 5, add on a negative a half. 5 is the same as 10 over 2, common denominator is 2. So if my two roots are 5 and a negative a half, when I add, I get 4.5, which is 9 over 2. And again, look how fast I did it when the sum of the roots of this quadratic is a negative b over a. Very fast to get the sum of the roots using negative b over a. To find the two roots and add them up, yes, it'll work, but it's a lot of more work. And we can find the sum of the roots of this one. Again, a is 1, b is 2, c is negative 11, and the sum of the roots is negative b over a, and that's the negative of 2 over 1, which is negative 2 over 1, or negative 2. So the sum of the roots is the negative b over a. Let's continue. Find the sum of the roots by negative b over a, the fast way. Here we go. A is 1 and b is 8, and I don't need the c for the sum of the roots, so the sum is negative b over a, so that's the negative of 8 all over 1, and that's just negative 8. And here, the sum of the roots, a is, again, 1, and b is a negative 3, so the sum is negative b over a, which is the negative of a negative 3 over 1, and a negative is positive. 3 over 1 is 3. And again, a is 2, b is negative 5, and the sum of the roots is negative b over a, which is the negative of a negative 5 all over 2. And that gives me 5 over 2 as the sum of the roots. And again, a is 3, b is negative 6. Again, c is negative 2, but I don't need it for the sum of the roots. So the sum of the roots is negative b over a, which is the negative of a negative 6 all over 3. So that's 6 over 3, or 2 is the sum of the roots. E, a is 1, b is 4. The sum of the roots is negative b over a, which is the negative of 4 all over 1. So that's just negative 4. And right here, notice we have x squared plus 0x minus 4 equals 0. A is 1, b is 0. So the sum is a negative b over a. So that's the negative of the 0 over 1. So 0 over 1 is 0. So the sum of the roots is 0. And practice by using negative b over 2a. Again, to find the two roots and add them up gives you the same answer as if you're doing negative b over a. So a is 1, b is negative 7, c is negative 8, but I don't need it. So the sum is negative b over a, which is the negative of a negative 7 over 1. So it's 7 over 1, or 7. A is 3, b is 12, and the sum of the roots is negative b over a, which is the negative of the 12. All over a is 3. That's negative 12 over 3, and the sum of the roots is negative 4. Notice the equation is in ax squared plus bx plus c. It has to be in that form in order to get the negative b over a for the sum of the roots. A is 5, b is negative 2, so the sum of the roots is negative b over a. So it's the negative of a negative 2. All over a is 5. And that's the negative of a negative positive, so it's 2/5 is the sum of the roots. And number 4, we got x squared plus 0x minus 9 equals 0. A is 1, b is 0. So the sum of the roots is negative b over a. So we get a negative of the 0 over 1, which is 0 over 1, because the negative of 0 is the same as 0. So the sum of the roots is a 0. And right here we have a is 6, b is 9, and the c is, c is 0, we don't need it. So the sum of the roots is negative b over a. So it's the negative of b is 9 over 6. So it's a negative 9 over 6. And we reduce. 3 goes into both of those. Negative 3 over 2, sum of the roots. And I have to simplify this equation into ax squared plus bx plus c. So I have to remove the bracket. So x times x is x squared minus 6x equals 2x. And we have to write it with all terms on the left. So we get x squared minus 8x equals 0. And so a is 1, b is negative 8. So the sum is negative b over a, which is the negative of a negative 8 over 1. So that's 8 over 1, or 8. Again, I did not need to see. I had to simplify the equation. Number 7, it got to be 4x squared minus 8x plus 3 equals 0. Again, the equation has to be ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is 4, b is negative 8, and c is 3, but we don't need it for the sum. The sum of the roots is a negative b over a, which is the negative of a negative 8 over 4, which is 8 over 4, or 2. Again, the sum of the roots is a negative b over a when the equation is written in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And let's continue. Let's switch the question now. Find the values of a and b in the equation ax squared plus bx plus c given the sum of the roots. So we have to find the values of a and b. The sum of the roots is negative b over a. Negative b over a is the sum of the roots. So let's do some examples. So if the sum of the roots, so we're giving you that the sum of the roots is 10. The sum is 10. We know that the sum is negative b over a. Therefore, negative b over a is equal to 10. And let's put the 10 over 1 to have a fraction. That means that negative b is equal to 10. So multiply by negative 1, b equals negative 10. And that means a equals 1. So negative b is 10. Multiply both sides by negative 1. Negative times negative positive. Negative times a positive negative. So A is 1, B is negative 10. And if the sum is a negative 3, well, again, the sum is a negative 3 given, but we know the sum is equal to negative b over a. Therefore, negative b over a is equal to negative 3. And let's put the negative 3 over 1 to create a fraction. Therefore, negative b equals negative 3. Denominator, a is 1. We multiply the equation by negative 1. Negative times negative is positive, b equals 3. So a is 1, b is 3. And again, the sum of the roots is 4/5. Sum, S for sum. The sum is negative b over a. So therefore, negative b over a, therefore, is 4/5. That means that negative b is equal to 4 and a is equal to 5. Again, we multiply by negative 1. Negative times negative is positive. Negative times a positive is a negative. So we have a is 5, b is negative 4. And again, we're given the sum. The sum is negative 2 over 7. And the sum of the roots is negative b over a. Therefore, negative b over a is negative 2 over 7. That means that negative b is equal to negative 2 and a is equal to 7. And we multiply by negative 1. Negative times negative is a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. So a is 7 and b is 2. Using the sum of the roots as negative b over a, we can get the values of a and b in your quadratic equation. Practice. Find the values of a and b if the sum of the roots is given. So the sum is 7. So the sum is 7. The sum is equal to negative b over a. Therefore, negative b over a is equal to 7. And the 7 is over 1 to be a fraction. So negative b is equal to 7. A is equal to 1. Multiply by negative 1. Negative times negative is positive. Negative times a positive is a negative. So a is 1, b is negative 7. And sum is negative 6 over 11. So the sum is negative 6 over 11. The sum is equal to negative b over a. Therefore, we have negative b over a is equal to negative 6 over 11. That means that the numerators are equal, so negative b equals negative 6. Denominators are equal, a is equal to 11. And because we had a negative b, we multiply the equation by negative 1. Negative 1 times negative, positive b. Negative 1 times negative 6, 6. So a is 11, b is 6. And number 3, we have the sum is 13 over 4 given, and the sum is negative b over a. You keep writing it down, and odds are you won't make a mistake. So negative b over a is the sum is equal to 13 over 4. So that means that a negative b is equal to 13, and a is equal to 4. Multiply by negative 1. Negative 1 times negative b is positive b. Negative 1 times 13 is negative 13. So a is 4, b is negative 13. Let's continue. And find the value of a and b in the equation ax squared plus bx plus c if the sum of the roots is negative b over 2a by negative b over 2a if the roots are these two roots. So if that's the roots, the sum of the roots is going to be 1, add on negative 4. So the sum of the roots is negative 3. So if the sum of the roots is negative 3, then we go with the sum is negative 3. The sum is negative b over a. Therefore, negative b over a is equal to negative 3 and understood to be over 1 to have a fraction. So therefore, negative b equals negative 3, a equals 1. And we multiply by negative 1. Negative times negative is positive b. Negative 1 times negative 3 is 3. So a is 1 and b is 3. So again, if I give them the two roots, I can add the roots up and then do negative b over 2a to get the values of a and b in this equation. And again, we have the two roots, so let's find the sum of the roots. So the sum of the roots means I have to add them up. So 1/6, add on negative 4 over 3. Common denominator for 6 and 4 is 12. So 12, 6 into 12 goes 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 12, 4, oh, that's a 3. See, just got to be careful. I look back and see negative 4. Negative 4 over 3. 3 and 12 goes 4. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. Add up, and I get a negative 14 over 12. And that can reduce to negative 7 over 6. So the sum is a negative 7 over 6. The sum is a negative b over a, and therefore negative b over a is a negative 7 over 6. Negative b equals negative 7, and a equals 6. So we multiply by negative 1. Negative times negative is positive b. Negative times negative 7 is 7. So a is 6, b is 7. And we have c. We have one root, but remember, there's also another one called its conjugate. So 1 subtract root 5, its conjugate is 1 plus root 5. So, if that be the case, the sum of these two roots is going to be 1 subtract root 5, add on 1 plus root 5. The conjugates, the root 5's cancel out, so I get a 2. So the sum of the roots is 2. So the sum is negative b over a. So that means that a negative b over a is equal to 2, which is understood to be over 1. So negative b equals 2, a equals 1, and we multiply by negative 1 on each side. We get b equals negative 2. So a is 1, b is negative 2. But notice this time I had to do the conjugate, because if this is an irrational number, the other number related to this must be its conjugate if there are two roots. And practice, I have 3 here to do by practice. So find the values of a, b, and c in this equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 by the sum of negative b over a, if the roots are. So the sum is a negative 6, add on negative 2. So the sum is negative 8. So if the sum is negative 8, and the sum is a negative b over a, therefore negative b over a is equal to negative 8. And since this is a fraction, negative 8, put it over 1 to make it a fraction. So that means that negative b equals negative 8, and a equals 1. Multiplied by negative 1. Negative 1 times negative b is b. Negative 1 times negative 8 is 8. So a is 1, and b is 8. Let's continue. We have two roots are given, right? The roots are these two, so we're going to get the sum of these two roots. So the sum of these two roots is 2/5. Add on a negative 1/2. Common denominator for 2 and 5 is 10. So 5 divided into 10 goes 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 into 10 goes 5. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. When I add, common denominator is 10. 5 or 4 add on negative 5 is a negative 1. So the sum is negative 1 over 10. The sum is a negative b over a. Therefore, negative b over a equals negative 1 over 10. Therefore, negative b equals negative 1. A equals 10. We multiply by negative 1. We get negative times a negative is positive b. And a negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. So a is 10, b is 1. And number 3, we have an imaginary number. If one root is imaginary, we have conjugates. So we have a negative 2 minus 4i is the conjugate of negative 2 plus 4i. Where these are conjugates, and that we change the second sign. And their sum of these roots is negative 2 plus 4i. Add on negative 2 minus 4i, And when you add these up, the imaginary parts disappear and we get a negative 4. So the sum is negative 4. The sum is negative b over a. So negative b over a is equal to negative 4 and is understood to be over 1. So negative b equals negative 4. A is 1. Multiply the equation by negative 1. Negative times negative is positive b. Negative 1 times negative 4 is 4. So a is 1, b is 4. So last page, number 6. And we went through exploring the sum of the roots as negative b over a, giving you the sum of the roots without finding them. And we can find the values of a and b in the equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c. When we know the roots, we can find the values of a and b fast. And we're going to use that sum of the roots to find the equation fast. If you like my video, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the notification bell. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content that's on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.